and happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Happy
Good
to be here.
evening. Good evening.
So, it's Wednesday, which means it's time for podcast day. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Woohoo!
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for having us.
I'm always happy you guys could attend. We've been on a pretty good streak here. Seahawks are back. We're back. You know, it's good times.
Absolutely.
We have a win. We're winners.
We are winners. Yes. And we are the Seahawks Fan Tape Podcast. I am Sam. They are Ross and Zeb. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And congratulations on our first win in 2018.
Yeah, it felt good, didn't it?
It felt awesome. It was. I had almost forgotten what it was like.
All it took was us getting a little fired up about it.
Yeah, I mean, we were ready to burn everything down.
Yep. I know I was.
Well, the Seahawks get the first win of the year, like literally the first win of 2018, and we really go from quote-unquote rebuild to quote-unquote compete after one game. Seattle continues to play great defense, while one of its stars shine above all else in play and in drama. The offensive line held its ground, paved its way for a 100-yard day and a red zone rushing touchdown, a first since 2016. Like, just wrap your head around that for like a minute. It's been over a year since the Seahawks have had a 100-yard rusher and a red zone touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing good.
Some players don't continue to play great, like our future Hall-of-Famer Michael Dickson. Penny didn't make the most of his opportunities, and we actually ran the ball. But we are the Seahawks Fan Table Podcast, brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. Gentlemen, what did you guys think of that game?
I was super stoked. Super happy to be there. There's nothing worse than flying over across an ocean to see a game and they lose. So, like that felt awesome, and like the way they won really mattered. I thought.
I was happy to see them get a win while you guys were there. That made me happy. And I mean, just and the actual segments of the game where we put together good football in all three facets of the game felt fantastic. So if we can start doing that for closer to 4 quarters a game, I'll be pretty happy.
I definitely felt like this game was like a build-up. There was definitely like that initial first quarter, which was outside of the defense playing well, it was pretty garbage. I mean, the offense couldn't get anything going. It looked like they were trying to get into a rhythm. They were saying like, oh, hey, we're really going to commit to the run. Like, I'd like to see that, but it definitely felt like they just couldn't click, you know? I don't know if that's what you guys felt, especially on the offensive side, but we had a first quarter turnover, but apparently we have yet to score off of our turnovers this year, which is pretty alarming.
All right, I was looking, and I think we actually did in week 1, didn't we?
Was that like a field goal or a touchdown?
I was looking at the scores earlier, and I felt like we actually were able to turn some of those week 1 turnovers into points, but since then it's been nothing.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that they were able to put up so many points in the second quarter. It looked like they finally found their legs, and you know, it was not, I think, the most spectacular offensive scoring, but it was just like really efficient. It was a lot of plays, a lot of mix of pass and run. And it's something that I felt very, very happy to see, because I think that was a big question we had in the previous 2 losses. Like, if our offense could just get it together, we'd be more competitive. We'd maybe win some of these games.
Exactly.
I concur.
So, Ross, you're at the game. It's always fun when you can come to town and you can actually attend the game. What was your thoughts of that first home game? Because it's first home game 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I get that has to happen, but it you can't help but escape. It feels a bit unfair to have your third game be your first home game, but I mean, yeah, it happens. It would make it. I was a bit worried that the crowd wouldn't be into it, to be honest. Like last year, not having made the playoffs and it having been quite a while since they'd won a game, I was a bit worried that I'd get there and some of the edge would be off. But I thought it was quite loud. I don't think it's ever going to be quite as loud as it used to be because it's gotten a little bit. I don't know. People are used to it. That's not as much of a thing. But I felt it was loud. I thought the crowd was pretty into it. I really dug the vibe. There were a lot of Dallas jerseys, but I mean, Dallas is one of those teams that just travels well or has fans everywhere anyway. So that didn't really put me off. And I don't know. It was a good vibe, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Just a quick, I also was worried, I was curious, the seats around me, what was the renewal rate going to be on you see the stats, but I really wanted to see what the renewal rate was going to be like on the season tickets. But everybody around me was exactly the same people, so it's been the same people since 2008 maybe.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I felt. I went to the game as well. I sat in my seats. One of the only advantages of the Cowboys is that their blue kind of looks like Seattle blue. So if Dallas Cowboy fans were wearing a dark jersey, they might as well have been Seahawk fans. You really couldn't tell.
Yeah, we were debating from across. I was looking into your section with my binoculars from my section, your area, and we were trying to figure out. My two friends and I were how many of those people actually were Cowboy fans over there.
Yeah, and to be fair to those Cowboys fans, there really wasn't a whole lot for them to get excited about. Any opportunity, it quickly dwindled. That team came out super flat. Their offenses really got nothing, and they had opportunities, but they couldn't capitalize. And they had a chance to tie the game up, but he ran out of bounds. And that was on my side. It was on the north side of the end zone, on the east side of the stadium, so northeast corner. That's where I'm sitting, and I see Dak, escape Earl, and then Zeke has got the ball, but he ran out of bounds. He clearly ran out of bounds, and you see the two hats from the sideline judge. So that means that they have a player that's gone out of bounds. He's the only one there, and I was sitting to four Cowboy fans to my left, and they were cheering. But then they could definitely say, wait a minute, why are all these flags? What happened? And they all saw the hats on the field, and they all kind of knew. It's oh, man, what a waste. And then when they heard it was a loss of down, they were just, crushed.
Yeah. It's always double crushing because, again, being the visiting fan, whenever you travel to a game, you can't help but have extra expectations just because you've put so much into it. So, I've gone to Seahawks games in opposing stadiums as well, and anytime something feels bad, it feels 2, 3, 4 times as worse just because of again, you're more emotionally invested, you're economically invested. It's just so bad.
Yeah. Zeb, what about you? You got to watch this game live. I heard a lot of commentary about Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. We know that Troy Aikman's a former Cowboys. I haven't listened to the full game. I've just rewatched the condensed game, so I've gotten to avoid a lot of what they've said. But what was your take when you got to watch this game with someone who is still a Cowboy player at heart and maybe tries to be objective? What did you feel listening to that game on TV? Nothing stood out to me as being particularly bad or one-sided. They were both pretty clearly disgusted with how the new roughing the passer penalties are going. I think Joe Buck even at one point sounded like he was just over it. I just can't take this anymore. He was really upset about it. But yeah, I didn't notice anything in particular that made me angry or anything, or that they were fine. Do you feel, with this being the first home game, that it was, because I felt a build-up, but did you feel like this game was building towards anything, or were you seeing kind of the concerns that maybe we would see last week or the 2 weeks before that?
As far as how they played,
about how they played and kind of just taking the game in.
If I feel like it felt like they did better with their opportunities this week. I don't know. I guess you could say things are trending upward. I don't expect. There was still some struggles, and I expect most of those struggles that we've had to continue. I think Russell looked a little more comfortable, whether that was just the offensive line giving him more time, or of him kind of settling down. He didn't have a crazy amazing game, but he was efficient for the most part. He only got sacked twice, which is very encouraging,
Huge
compared to the
improvement.
way things have been in those first couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we're trending upward, and it's not just a course of a case of a home opener against a Cowboys team that clearly isn't very good right now. Hopefully it's something to build on.
No, definitely for sure. And I think that's something that again, it's always tough to start on the road. It's even harder, as Ross, you alluded to, that if you start 2 on the road, you have a really, really huge opportunity to already be down. So to be down 0-2 before you even get your first home game, it's a really tough draw. Obviously, other teams have that situation as well, but it always is worse when it's your own team. We're going to talk about some stuff during the game, but any other hot takes or quick thoughts about that game for you guys?
People keep saying like the Dallas team isn't very good at all. I thought their defense actually isn't that bad. I mean, is it?
It has been seeming pretty good, but it didn't seem all that great against us.
Right, but doesn't that mean like maybe if we can put it together, we're just not quite as bad as we think? I mean, like they have some, especially they have some pretty legit pass rushers, right?
They're supposed to have one of the better pass rushers in this league.
People told me like that was part of like this murderer's row of pass rushers we were going to face. So you can't just go all of a sudden say they're not good because they didn't get there. Like, maybe we're not quite as bad as things looked.
I suspect it's a little bit of both. Maybe we're getting better, but maybe Dallas isn't as good as they've looked.
Right, and like their offense isn't, their offense isn't great, but they have some playmakers, a couple. I mean, their receiving core is pretty shot. Tight ends is shot, but Dak Prescott was supposed to be okay. He was supposed to be a better Russell Wilson. He's turning into like a poor man's Russell Wilson.
I don't even know if that's a poor man's Russell Wilson. I mean, he was skipping balls. He was sailing. He looked so bad. Like,
we've seen Russ skip a couple balls in his time when he's under pressure.
Yeah, but that's different. Like this was a player who's supposed to have one of the better offensive lines, and he panicked. Like he would sail balls on guys that were open. Like Russell Wilson, he's going to miss a ball here and there for sure, but I kind of felt like Dak definitely was out of it. I don't know if that's just who he is or maybe it's the crowd or something, but he did not have a good game. And
he didn't look very good, but also, and in his defense, his 2 interceptions were both off of his receiver's hands.
I would give a little bit more credit to the second one because Bobby was right there. He had a chance for that ball, but I do agree with you, Zeb, that those are balls that get popped up, and those are, as a quarterback, you never want to see that.
So what's happened to him? I mean, like first his rookie campaign, he was awesome. I think I mentioned last week I was sort of jealous of him. I was kind of mad, like, oh god, this guy's going to come in, he was going to forget about Russell Wilson because this guy's whatever. But it hasn't really worked out. I wonder what's going on there.
Maybe it's coaching.
I suspect that is it.
Yeah, I think it's coaching, and I think it's a philosophy. They don't seem to trust Ezekiel Elliott. I mean,
Which is
he at the end of the game he had a statistically fine game, but he made a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of errors that cost them points. If he plays, a little bit more focused, he probably plays a better game, and all of a sudden that's a more competitive game. But they were talking about he hasn't gotten 20 carries in a game this entire year through 3 games, and it's a small sample size, but you'd think that if this is your best player on offense or defense, you're going to give them that opportunity, and it doesn't seem like they want to. And maybe they're trying to build up Dak, they're trying to make him a focal point, but it doesn't look like that's working out in their favor right now.
I mean, he got more yards rushing than Carson did on literally half as many carries.
Yeah.
If they give Zeke the ball 25 to 30 times in that game, he's over 200 yards rushing.
Yeah, and
but like you said, he had a couple of errors, mental mistakes, had the fumble, the stepping out of bounds and all that. So, yeah, I mean, rushing he did fine. His overall game was not as, he didn't do enough. He could have done a lot more to help his team win in that situation.
Yeah, but speaking of helping your team win, let's talk about topic number 1. Ross, I'm going to hit you up with this because I know you wore his jersey on Sunday.
I did.
Topic number 1. Has Earl Thomas created the hardest personnel decision for the Seahawks front office?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, yes, no. If it was me, if it was you, if it was Zeb in the front office, I think yeah. But Pete Carroll's got his own way of dealing with things, and John Schneider seems to take his cue from that. And it doesn't look like it's actually hard for them. Like they've got their way, and I don't know. Like, Pete Carroll almost seems like amused that the rest of us are just kind of in crisis of this because we all look at like conventional management, and we all look at conventional ways of dealing with how you're supposed to do with things, and it just seems like a huge paradox. This guy is breaking all the rules, not even just like team rules, but sort of like football code rules, like don't put your team in a bad position and keep things private and keep things in the locker room, and he's doing none of that. But at the same time, three interceptions and this and that, and he's playing lights out on the field, and so it should be like, oh my god, like hand wringing. But I think Pete Carroll's just like, well, he lets us win, so on the one hand he dryly gets these penalties, and we're not going to even hear about all the sanctions and whatever's happening because that's how they handle things, and it's just going to continue like this. I think. I've been fooled by this before, like last year and the year before. Like I feel like they're in dilemmas and things like that, and I've come to realize that for Pete Carroll, there is no dilemma. Like Earl Thomas is going to do things, and like Pete Carroll said in his thing Monday morning, there's going to be consequences for that we're not going to hear about, and probably because of who he is, the team is okay with it, and so it's just going to go like this. I mean, it should be like a crisis. It should be like, oh my god, 24 hours a day, what are we going to do about this guy? But Pete Carroll has a way of just like defusing and dismissing, and it's just how it is, what it is. It's just going to be like that. And there's a certain amount of Seahawks mystique. They need a little bit of that tension, right, to play. If everything's too smooth, I don't know what they would do. We have to have some drama, so Earl's providing all of the drama this year. It just seems like it's just going to be how it is. So that's my weird answer. For me, it would be a really hard decision. I don't, because I mean, I'm a bit conservative with these things, as you guys know, and like it just outrages me. But Pete Carroll's a different cat, and I've got a lot to learn from him actually. And so he just takes it in stride, and yeah, there you go. That's it. It's just going to be what it is. It's weird, right? It's just weird because it feels like it's a situation that needs something to be done about it. You either need to bring him to heel, or you need to get rid of him, or you need to do something, big time. And Pete Carroll's just like, no, I don't. He's going to play, and I want him to practice, but he's not going to. And see you next Sunday. I don't know.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. And now I guess they're calling them approved rest days for him.
Yeah, non-injury related rest days.
So I mean, while I feel like Earl has a point in all this, I think it's pretty well agreed that he's going about it all the wrong ways. He's got people on TV like Deion Sanders and Shannon Sharp, telling him, Earl, this is not the way to do that. You don't say those things to the media. You don't do these kind of things that are going to affect your teammates and the younger guys on the team who look up to you. But all that said, he's literally the reason why we're competing this year. Like he's playing out of his mind. Like he's playing like the best safety in the league. And I understand that there's some principle there that is obviously important, but I just feel like all this goes away if you pay the man, and he doesn't show any signs of slowing down or wearing down. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm not the smartest financially, but if it's me in charge right here, I'm giving Earl a contract because he's playing lights out right now.
Yeah, I think Ross, you point out a really good thing, that this is not something for the common fan or even the media to really comprehend. Zeb, I'm with you. I'm totally in the extend Earl camp. I have been for a while, just because I know. I mean, I'm not the front office, but
No.
I'm saying because he is still so great, and I'm not saying like give him everything he wants because he's still top 6 highest paid safety in the league. You know, they don't differentiate between strong or free, but he's still a top 6 paid for safety in this league, and you know I'll throw him an extra $1 million a year, but you know probably not going to happen. I think
That's not what he wants, though. He wants 13.
that's not what he wants.
Well,
That's not what he
wants
wants.
14 or 14.5, probably. He
But
wants.
as we know, what Earl
million.
Thomas wants is not what Earl Thomas is going to get. Earl Thomas is playing this in the completely wrong way. He's not giving the Seahawks any incentive to extend him. The way that I see it, it's kind of like what you were saying, Ross, is Pete Carroll already has this totally planned out in his head. He knows what's going to happen. He's basically going to play Earl, and then he's going to either franchise him and then trade him next year, or he's going to let him walk. There's no signs that Pete Carroll has any interest at all in playing this negotiation tactic in the press, with the media, with the fans. He's basically saying like Earl is going to suit up, he's going to play, and that's kind of the end of it. You know, there are consequences if he acts out, but for the most part, we're going to keep it in house. And I think that drives everyone crazy because if we saw this in another way, we'd all freak out. Because all the contract issues beforehand, it's really not that much different from what we saw with Cam Chancellor. Cam Chancellor was, you know, he wasn't as vocal, he wasn't as combative about it, but we knew where he stood and we knew where the Seahawks stood. And the Seahawks said, you know, show up to camp, practice, we'll judge it and we'll take it from there. Same thing with Michael Bennett, same thing with Marshawn Lynch, Bobby Wagner, KJ, Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson. They've handled all of their contract negotiations in the same way. We're not talking until we have something to talk about. And I think that's what Pete and the front office are going to do. They're going to basically say, like, no, you know, if as long as he's not hurt and as long as he doesn't do anything to like really mess things up, he's going to play on Sundays. And that's kind of where they're at, which kind of freaks me out and blows my mind that they can be so relaxed and calm about this.
It helps, like, who Earl Thomas is, right? I mean, obviously, but because if it was anybody, even slightly lesser stature, I feel like some of the players would be really resentful.
I think
and to be honest, I suspect even now some of them have to be.
Well, the interesting thing is there are other situations that are playing out that are similar to what's going on. Le'Veon Bell has not shown up for 3 games. He's been replaced by James Conner. Only if you have James Conner as your fantasy handcuff do you even know who this guy is. But the Steelers barely won a game on Monday night. They're 1-2 just like the Seahawks. But it's not like they're really missing Le'Veon Bell. Like, Le'Veon Bell is not the reason why they're losing games. But they still have that contract out there. And his offensive line has called him out. You know, his teammates have called him out. James Harrison, former linebacker for the Steelers, has even said Le'Veon should just sign the free franchise tag and just fake an injury so he can get paid but not play. I mean, that's insane. But as you were saying, Ross, Earl Thomas is a very, very different guy. He wants to play. He loves football, and he wants to get paid. But he's probably not going to get paid.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, people like keep saying they want to extend him, and I look at the money he wants, and it's like, is he worth $5.5 million more than he's making now?
I would say no.
I mean, especially if he's 3 years older than now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't show any signs of looking bad now, but that's not how it happens.
No, for
like
sure.
In the media, they tend to talk about the slow decline, and some players do slowly decline, but a lot of players, it's just they come up because they hit the wall.
Earl Thomas has four turnovers this year in 3 games. It's insane.
Yeah, he's great this year. I have no problems. I wouldn't mind paying him more this year. I guess I've never said that. I should be clear. I wouldn't mind bumping him this year if you'd done it right. I have a hard time rewarding people with this kind of super anti-organization behavior, but I wouldn't mind bumping him this year. But it's the extension part. Like, I don't want to pay him $15 million 3 years from now when I don't know what he's going to be looking like, and everybody else who plays like him ends up hitting a wall in the next couple of years. And like at some point, you have to have risk management as part of your payment strategy. It's maybe like the one, like clearly John Schneider has thought most of this out. He's obviously got his plan. We were looking the other day at cap space next year. All of a sudden, next year, Seahawks have huge cap space. They've planned this out. They know when people are getting old and whatnot. But one thing that maybe up until now they hadn't properly put into their calculations was like risk management. Okay, we can give this guy the extension, but they didn't realize that almost 100% of their third contracts they were going to give, we're going to burn them.
Yeah.
And so now you have to turn it. You can't ignore that. Nobody said. Yeah.
Who are we going to pay with all this huge cap space next year then?
Well, some people have to be extended. I mean, I don't think they're going to let Russell Wilson go, apparently. So that's going to be a huge chunk of it, isn't it?
Frank Clark.
Frank Clark is probably going to get it. He's going to earn his extension. That's going to be, $1 million a sack. So he's going to have $14-15 million. And then there you go. there's 30 and 15.
Well, let's talk about our future. So let's go to topic number 2. Topic number 2, Zeb, who or what is going to prepare this team to the playoffs? So not just for success for this year, but for the future. What has to happen now that we've gone from an 0-2 to a 1-2 team? What do you see is going to help this team get to the playoffs?
If we can see consistent improvement the way we've seen it from the game before to the game against the Cowboys, that'll get us to the playoffs. If we improve that much each game in our consistency, our commitment to the run, our getting good steady play out of Russell, getting good offensive line play, the defense staying strong, that could do it. Now, like I said earlier, we don't know necessarily if us getting better is a trend yet. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But if it is, if we can stay healthy, I think we're at the beginning of being on a good course, a good trajectory.
Sounds like Zeb is ready to turn the corner from last week.
Well, we'll see what happens this week.
He's holding back. He's reserving judgment. Ross, what about you? What do you think is going to propel? Who or what's going to help propel them to the playoffs this year, if that's even possible?
Improved offensive line. I don't think Postic's getting his job back, to be honest. The line looked so good. Joey Hunt surprised me. But like Sweezy looks great in that, like as a left guard, and Fluker finally playing as the right guard, and that looked really good. So if he can keep doing that, and they keep that commitment to the run, and Carson keeps showing up, and if Penny slightly improves, Russell continues to get some more chemistry with some of the new receivers. The defensive, really young people. I mean, Trey Flowers out there starting at cornerback. How are people not talking more about that dude? That dude's converting from safety to cornerback at the NFL level as a fifth-round draft pick, and he's not being picked on. He's not being massacred. Like, yeah, as long as those defensive players keep developing as well, the scheme and the coaching up, I think, if anything, this year really, really shows you how solid Pete Carroll's basic scheme and effectiveness in coaching people up is really proving to be, because the defense, which we thought was going to be the side of the ball lagging behind, we thought like offense had a lot of talent, but it's the defense that's looking pretty good. So I think that could get them there, maybe. I'm not looking like we're going to be 14-2, but we could sneak in. If we continue on this mini upward click we're going on.
No, I think you guys are both right. It's hard to kind of like temper your expectations after such a solid win. I mean, all facets of that game played really well. They were disciplined. Offensive line played well. Offensive personnel looks like it's one to move with moving forward, minus maybe Bradford for Joey Hunt. But I think really what it comes down to is it's that balance. Pete Carroll always talks about balance, and in those first 2 losses, we didn't see that. It was, we're going to throw the ball 35 times a game and only run it 15, where they ran the ball like 35 times this game, and then they only threw the ball like 24 times a game. So that ratio seems to really work to their favor. Obviously, it helps them control the ball, their yards per carry was really ugly. Like, it took a lot of carries for Chris Carson to get to the 100-yard threshold, but he got there, and it ate up the clock. It used, huge chunks of time. And there's this philosophy out there that says running is not as important. It's all about, gaining yards, regardless of how you do it, which is probably true. But there is something to be said about the way that game looked when they ran play action, when they ran those running plays. Even if they kind of got stuffed, it looked like they still had all this positive momentum. There was not a lot of negative running plays from that offensive line and the running backs, which I think is like a huge plus. So to temper my expectations, I think it's balance. Balance is really what's going to help them propel them into the playoffs, because if they can have that balance where the defense continues to play well, the young guys step up and continue to grow, offensive line plays well, running game helps support the passing game, who knows where this is. And, we'll talk about it in later when we talk about our opponent next week, but the schedule looks like it kind of gets a little bit better. I mean, there's still a bunch of away games coming up, but they're not the nightmare. They're not these awful places to play at,
And the Niner games look a lot different this week than they did last week.
Yeah, I mean, the next game we're playing, we're going to play against a rookie quarterback,
We're going to come up against a string of not so awesome quarterbacks, aren't we?
And they got to take advantage of it. That's what it'll come down to, I think they had a chance in Chicago, but, they just, a bad offensive scheme kind of did them in.
Yeah. Do you think quarterback is maybe the Rams' Achilles heel, or are you a believer in Goff?
The Rams, I think the Rams are probably the team to beat in the NFC West, but I don't think they're perfect. I mean, they were 11-5 last year, which is a solid record, but you kind of need to get to that 12 to 13 win ratio to kind of be considered epically good and a front runner for the playoffs. 11-5 just means you're a contender. It doesn't mean that you're guaranteed anything. I don't think they've played the best of teams yet. I think it'll be really interesting once they play that number one schedule, because they're going to have to play number one teams from, the NFC East and the NFC South this year. I think that will have a huge impact about how they play, because I'd like to see how they face against a healthier Philadelphia Eagles team, because I think that will have a huge impact. But yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if I fully believe in Jared Goff yet. He still has to kind of win me over, I guess. What about you, Zeb? Do you believe in the Rams?
I hesitantly say that I do. I haven't got to watch much of them this year, but everything I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from everybody else is they sound super legit. So, with the caveat being that I honestly haven't seen them that much. I do believe, yeah. I think they're as good as everybody thinks they are.
Well, yeah, the NFL, it stands for not for long, so we'll see if that holds true with the Rams. But we're gonna move on.
You're just always waiting for them to fall apart, man. Even last year, no, they're not real. They're not real. They're not real.
Well,
we refuse to believe it.
At the time last year, before we played the Rams, the Seahawks were 8-4. They were, I believe, they were a game ahead. They were 9-3.
Yeah.
And then we had that chance to play them, and we would have been tied, and we would have had we would have had a 2-game tie. We would have had the tiebreaker because we would have gone 2-0 in the year, and then we fell apart. I mean, it was pretty crazy to see the Seahawks team fall apart, and we never seen them do so poorly at the end of the year. But yeah, I mean, I do believe the Rams are the front runner for the NFC West. The Seahawks have a lot of ground to make up if they want to compete for the division, but they have a chance to be competitive. I think if they can find that balance. I don't know if they can do that yet. I think that still remains to be seen.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Yeah.
let's move on to topic number 3. So the topic number 3 is the Hawks Cast Corner. So special shout out to Tony for chiming in. He actually wrote this on Facebook, so you can find this at Facebook /Seahawks Fan Table. It's also on the forum at hawkscast.com under the podcast section. Tony provided us with 6 great ideas, topics for us to talk about. A little bit of confusion about which one we were going to go to with, but we were able to secure it. So, Ross, I'm going to hit you off with this first. If Lockett is right now wide receiver number 2 for us, why is he risking injury returning punts and kicks?
First of all, I mean, I think it's important to think about special teams in a different way these days. People have looked at special teams as sort of like the what is it called? The redheaded stepchild of the football team. But compared to the number of plays, it has a huge influence on the games. I think some teams are starting to wake up to. And so if you put him back there for 4 or 5 plays a game, and those plays have a chance to dramatically change the game, it's actually quite a good investment. Running routes, if the offense has the ball for 60 plays a game, and he runs out and he runs 40 routes and is targeted 4 times, that's arguably more dangerous considering what you're going to get a return on. 4 or 5 catches, he's been lucky and scored a touchdown every game so far, but arguably you can have a bigger impact as the kick returner. And even if you only get it to the 20, just the fact that, how can I say, statistically you gotta have things. You're gonna have the ones where he gets back to the 20 just so you have enough opportunities to have the big run backs. And so I think actually it's a huge influence on the game. And I'd rather risk him there actually than anything else. I mean, it's only 4 or 5 plays a game on kickoffs, hopefully just 1 if you shut them out, and 3, 4, 5 punts a game. I think it's really, really worth the risk, and I think a lot of teams sort of mismanage their roster by not letting the dangerous players back there, because field position is where it all matters. It's all statistical. If you start at the 40-yard line, you have a certain percentage chance of scoring a touchdown. If you start at the 30, if you start at the 20, and so you want to start as close to obviously the other teams as possible, and it really does matter percentage-wise. And I mean, you can get into all other statistical analysis of that. That's why you should go for more 4th down than teams do. But overall, I think it's a really, really good use of his abilities and his talents. And if you are going to pay him that much money, some people thought he was slightly overpaid, then you may as well maximize the investment. And and the third one is a more traditional argument. You can't play scared. You can't just, okay, now I've paid you this much and I'm going to bubble wrap you, because I think that's sort of the way he tends to get hurt. If you start running routes the way and you're not trying to get hurt and only using players to not get hurt, and I think that's an infectious mindset, and it's not a mindset you want to have. So I don't think it's a risk. I think it's getting a return on your investment. I think it's a really smart play, actually.
I agree 100%. I mean, Deion Sanders used to return punts and kicks. Tim Brown used to return kickoffs. Like, if you don't have a return specialist on your team, then you have to put your best guy for the job in the spot. And I think that for us, that's pretty clearly Tyler Lockett. Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It can be a running back or a cornerback or a wide receiver. I think you just have to put your guy who you trust back there. If he has big playability, perfect. If not, if it's just a matter of keeping the ball safe, and being sure that it's somebody you can trust to make good decisions, that's fine as well. But I don't see it as that much of a risk. It's football. There's a risk on every play, but you can't hold guys back from what they're capable of doing because of that risk. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think he's clearly the best guy on our squad for it, and I'm glad that they've decided to let him do it.
I think what it comes down to a lot is with the biggest component that you guys have both said, if you think it's a risk, do you do it or not? So that's kind of like the first qualifier. If you don't think it's a risk, what do you expect to get out of it? So I'm with you guys. I don't think playing on special teams is that big of a risk. I think a player like that is more likely to get hurt in the field, which is actually what happened. He got hurt on a traditional passing deep play. But what I think Tyler Lockett has shown is his ability to play in space, get past coverage is one of the best on the team, and he's really suited well for kick returns and punt returns. Statistically, you average more yardage on a kick return and a punt return in special teams than you do in any other play in football. And you kind of need your most dynamic player that can play with that space, that can play in that fashion. The guy that he replaced that we had before, Golden Tate. Golden Tate is one of those really dynamic players that when you get the ball in his hands, he can do so much with it. It's a classic no, 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 yes, because all of a sudden what looks like a terrible play turns into something amazing. And that's what Tyler Lockett does. That's what Golden Tate did. They could take this play that looked like nothing's going to happen, and they could just turn on the jets, and they burst, and all of a sudden, they're one tackle away from turning it into a touchdown. And he has that ability. So when you look at his position, when you look at what he brings, not just as a wide receiver to the offense, and kind of right now our number one receiver, the value he brings to our return game is immeasurable. I don't really trust anyone else. We know that Rashad Penny has had kick return opportunities, and he did really well at San Diego State, but he doesn't look like he's ready for that in the NFL. Tyler Lockett, the money that he's paying, I want him to continue with it because he continues to excel. He's making smart decisions most of the time. And for the most part, he's going to take that return and he's going to get past the 25-yard line, which is kind of like the threshold. Ross, I know that's something that you've always talked about is if you know you're not going to get to the 25, don't take the ball out. But Tyler Lockett oftentimes looks like he's clearly going to pass the 25-yard line. And, sometimes he doesn't. But for the most part, it seems like he consistently is always able to get beyond that.
I'm actually most of the time okay with it. It just depends on how stupid or smart it is. I mean, again, it's opportunity cost. You're not going to run everything back. But if you also don't take any opportunities, you're never going to have the chance to run something back further. So I don't mind that. If you get out to the 18, 19, 17-yard line, that losing the 3 yards off of downing it, I think in the long term pays off. But if you're some of these people, like a couple of years ago in particular, where they were just kind of mad, they thought they weren't going to get any opportunities at all, and we're running it out and only getting to the 10 and the 15, take a knee.
Yeah. I mean, you got to get at least to like the 18, right?
Yeah. Around there, and then
like if you get the ball like 7 yards deep in the end zone, probably not a great idea to take it out.
No.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time. Tony, unfortunately...
Well, there's a few, again, it all comes down to statistics, and there's every once in a while a chance, like, if you're down by a touchdown and there's 45 seconds left and don't have timeouts, in those cases, people always say take a knee, but I think percentage-wise, actually, that's a time you might want to just run it out because the slight chance you're going to pop that for 7 is probably higher than the chance you're going to be able to move it down for the touchdown in those 20 seconds you're going to have left. So,
and the clock stops after the play's done anyway.
Yeah, so there's cases. There's cases. Like I said, the game's highly statistical, but I think we're lagging on the Moneyball revolution in the NFL.
Special shout out to Tony. Usually he chats with us sometimes, but he's not here today. So Tony will get your thoughts offline. Check it out at hawkscast.com. But let's go to our last topic for the day. Gentlemen, Zeb, I'm going to hit this off with you. It's Arizona Cardinals, and the big question for you, is Sam Bradford the biggest scam artist of all time? So to put this into a little bit of perspective, I'm going to talk about the money that Sam Bradford has actually made. These are not contracts. This is money that he's been paid. So his rookie deal with the Rams, he got $65 million. So this was pre-current CBA. He then was traded and then re-signed with the Eagles, and he was with the Eagles for 2 years, got paid $24 million. He was then traded to the Vikings because Teddy Bridgewater busted his kneecap, who basically had it explode, and was with the Vikings for 2 years and was paid $25 million. He then signs a 1-year deal for $20 million with the Cardinals in 2018 with a $20 million option for 2019. Zeb, is this guy a scam artist?
Hell yeah, he is. I don't blame the Rams because he totally looks the part. and he played the part just fine in college, but it didn't take long to really see what he was, and that is a backup at best in the NFL. Like this guy's not going to take anybody anywhere. And yeah, let me look at that. That's highway robbery, right? Like the guy's made $1 bazillion. I'm sure every single team that paid him that money regrets doing it. So yeah, clearly a giant scam artist.
Ross, what about you?
I put him as the number 2 scam artist of all time. I think, not the number 1. Number 1 is Jamarcus Russell, right?
Yeah, but Jamarcus Russell didn't play this long and didn't get this much money, I don't think.
But he got a fully guaranteed $60 million, because that was before they changed the CBA.
Yeah,
$60 million, and so he got about half as much. You're right, he didn't play as long, so he got half as much for playing 1/8 as long. Started a handful of games, if that many, because essentially he could throw the ball 60 yards from his knees, and that's why. Like that's the biggest scam of all time. But it's hard to say scam artists, because like scam artists like go out of their way to like lie and cheat and whatever, right? Like Sam Bradford's not out there like lying. Like the tape's out there.
I don't know. So, I feel like he's hustling somebody.
It feels like, right? It's like some sort of like an illusion. I would say he's more like an illusionist. Like the tape doesn't look like, and like he's been also the benefactor of a few like kind of random things. Like everybody knew Jeff Fisher was a horrible, horrible coach who didn't especially know how to coach offense. So you sort of felt like you said, Sam, he looks the part, and he underachieved at the Rams. But he wasn't like all-time worst. He just he was slightly below average. But I think a lot of teams convinced themselves like, well, that's because he's with Jeff Fisher. And then once he's out from Jeff Fisher's thumb, he'll be better, right? Because that's actually happened to a couple players. So, so how are you to know that it's not true in his case? And then I don't know, man. And then like with the Vikings, sort of kind of okay. So you're right, and so there's a little bit of tape there, and then there's all sorts of excuses that are built in for teams to make, and I don't know. The Cardinals just don't know what they're doing anyway. So teams are kind of scamming themselves, aren't they? It's fool's gold, maybe. I don't know. The coach killer. There's all kinds of things you could use for what he's called. But yeah, that dude, like that adds up to like $129 million or something.
It's ridiculous. So. Before, like, I'm in agreement with you guys. He's a scam artist of some kind, whether willingly or not. He got paid a bunch of money. It really has nothing to show for it. I have this pulled up. Do you know, if you were to guess, what is the most wins he's had in a single year?
6.
Zeb, what would
7,
you say?
6.
8.
The most games he's ever won in a given year where he's played more than 10 games is 7.
Okay.
He's never won more than 7 games in a year. His best year technically is when he went 7, 8, and 1. So he had a losing record, but he didn't have a winning record either. It's like...
Well, what was his record? Like, what was his record with the Vikings?
The Vikings,
feel like he did well with
the Vikings.
His best time was in Minnesota, clearly.
Yeah, in Minnesota, his first year in Minnesota, he played 15 games. He went 7 and 8. The following year, he got injured in the second game, and he was 2-0 as a starter, but he didn't finish that second game.
If you look at just the time spent in Minnesota, 17 games, he threw for 4,200 yards, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in Minnesota. That's over 2 seasons, like Sam just said.
Yeah, 17 games, he's 9 and 8.
So again, like if you want to be fooled, then there's like a reason you could fool yourself, right? There's just enough tape out there, like. And I really think like the Jeff Fisher factor is part of it, because like Case Keenum is the same thing, right? Case Keenum sucked. Oh wait, maybe it was Case Keenum. Not.
Yeah, it's Case Keenum.
I don't know. Right, so like certain cases of players escaping a coach, especially quarterbacks, and like all of a sudden, like, whoa, like they're better than we thought they were. They actually play legit.
Yeah.
So people just kind of keep convincing themselves over and over and over again that Sam Bradford can play, and it's weird, man. But it's exactly what you said, Sam. Like he looks the part, and that's so much of it, right? And again, it just gets back to like Moneyball, man. Like if you don't look the part, people don't want you. If you throw weird, or if you don't look, if you're not tall enough, or whatever, you're not the right complexion, people don't want you as much.
I think it's weird. I think it's weird that teams would kind of like fool themselves into saying, I can coach this guy, I can make it better, he's got all the tools, we just need to put him in our system and we'll fix it. Like, the hubris, the idea that they can fix something, like, it's crazy to me to think that teams are so unwilling to try something new and try something different. It makes me appreciate what the Seahawks do. Like, obviously they're not perfect, but it makes me appreciate that they're willing to do something sometimes unconventional. Because if I were any of these teams that signed Sam Bradford to these monster contracts, and these are monster contracts that he's getting, I would be so upset. Because I'm looking at the money that he's making, over these 2-year periods, and it's insane. Like, he got a $20 million contract for this year, and he's 0-3, and he got benched. I mean, how bad does it look for you as a GM?
Yeah, but everybody reckons they're the quarterback whisperer, right?
Yeah, and sometimes,
certain things work for one person, and they become very, very famous, and that becomes like the standard MO. Like we talked about before, like the idea that you have to build a roster when you find like your Peyton Manning. So once you have your franchise quarterback, you build everything no matter what around that person. So then in the past, there's also been like the quarterback whisperer thing, the guy who like resurrected somebody's career. So then everybody wants to be that guy. Like people are too lazy to find like their own thing, or it's too hard. It's too hard to find in coaching your own thing, and it's very, very risky. If you follow something new and you don't do it, then it looks. If you follow conventional wisdom and you fail, people don't judge you as harshly as if you tried to do things your own way, fail. Even though it's not like what we pretend in the movies and the novels. Supposed to try your own way and fail, whatever. But in real life, if you're the manager that goes out and does like something crazy and it fails, then people just laugh at you and think you're an idiot and think you were like mentally whatever from the beginning. So if you just follow conventional wisdom and you fail, you're more likely to even to get a second job, a second chance, because people think, oh, well, he'll learn from his mistakes. So, like Chip Kelly, I mocked him as well, but at least you know what, he tried something new.
Yeah,
so I give him props for that. I think he's not a very nice person himself.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we didn't even talk about the Cardinals. I mean, it's just, I can't, like, Ross, this is your topic, but I just can't fixate on anything other than Sam Bradford and all this money he's made, and he's just not someone that I would ever think of, like, oh yeah, that's a quarterback that I'm happy is leading my team. There's so many other quarterbacks out there that I would so much rather have if I have to pick somebody, but
there's not really much to talk about also with the Cardinals, to be honest. Like most power rankings have them at 32. They're totally misusing their best player. They've got David Johnson, but they're using him as sort of like a jackhammer rather than a dynamic playmaker in both between the tackles and in space and off tackle. So,
well, let's talk about that. Let's get into predictions, because I have some fun predictions I want to hit with. Zeb, I'm going to hit you off with these first. What's the final score with the Seahawks and the Cardinals this weekend?
31-3.
Oof.
I won't be happy with anything less than a three touchdown win.
All right. Ross, what's your prediction?
I almost want to say 42 or 45, but I'm gonna play it realistic and go 38-10.
38-10. The Seahawks have done really, really well. Like, can you guys remember the last time they've lost in Arizona?
Nope.
I think they haven't lost in the Russell Wilson era. Oh no, maybe his first year.
Wait,
his first year. We tied, and then in Russell Wilson's first year, it was his first start as in a regular season game. They lost. But
I'm still mad about that tie. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Hashko with that field goal.
I'm still pissed off. I'm still pissed off.
Was that
it
6-6?
Yeah. Was
6-6.
was
Oh
it
my
and that was the game where Bobby leaped the line twice. And like
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
their coach was livid. Like he could like Bruce Arians couldn't stand like, "Oh, that's so dangerous for him to leap the line like that. Like we got to take that out of the game." And they did, but god.
That was Cam Chancellor, right?
No, Cam Chancellor did it in
did it in
the
the
game
playoffs.
against the Panthers. And then
Oh,
Bobby
right.
did it in the desert. My prediction, we're gonna go 35-14. I think we're gonna
Okay.
a lot of points, which will be awesome. Prediction number 2: is the O line gonna shift away from this projected lineup of Dwayne Brown, J.R. Sweezy, Justin Britt, DJ Fluker, and Jermaine Ifedi?
What do we know about Britt's health?
Britt's practicing.
He's back.
Yeah, everything points to him playing because he played very sparingly in that Dallas game. He played a couple special teams plays.
Oh, really? I didn't even notice. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't
Well, yeah.
see
If he's back, I think that's the 5.
Can I be a little sacrilegious and ask if Britt's better than Joey Hunt? I mean, I know he physically is more imposing, but is he better?
I don't know.
Joey Hunt, pretty kind of surprised me last game, and he seems really smart.
I think Joey
Apparently,
Hunt
he talks a lot of shit too.
Oh man, they were talking about he was on 710 with Danny David Moore, and after he drew the unnecessary roughness or whatever penalty he drew from Lawrence, what he did was he just walked straight to where they were going to place the ball. Like he just clapped his hands and just started marching. Like, nope, the ball's going to be placed here. That's 15 yards. That's right here. Let's kick that field goal. Like he was ready to go.
He just started walking. The flag hits the ground, and he just starts walking up.
Yeah. I think that is a good question. I would say if not for this game, then yeah, it would be kind of a concern. But I think Justin Britt, he's shown he's capable. He's had really solid years. He was a Pro Bowl alternate. I think he's the one that's going to get the start if he's healthy. But if he's not, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with Joey Hunt than I would have ever in the past. So Brown, Sweezy, Britt, Fluker, Ifedi, I think that's our offensive line.
Because I think, yeah, I just think we slightly overrate Britt. I know he had that Pro Bowl alternate year or whatever, but I think he has been our best player on offensive line for a couple of years. But that's made him look better than he is. If everybody else around you sucks and you're average, you look pretty awesome.
Yeah, totally.
For sure, I would definitely say that's the issue. But it could be also that playing with DJ Fluker and J.R. Sweezy made Joey Hunt look really good too.
Well, it could be that. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that's true. Fluker, Fluker's so legit.
Yeah. All right. Prediction number 3: Zeb over under Rosen rookie turnovers 1.5. Josh Rosen.
Over, man. The interception streak continues.
Ross, what about you? Over under 1.5.
It's got to be over, doesn't it? It's got to be like 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles.
I'd like to see a sack strip fumble. Yeah, I think you have
I
to
was
say
gonna
more.
I was gonna say it's gonna be. There's gonna be at least one, like you said, sack strip kind of situation.
I think
two interceptions.
I think the one fear you always have is when you play a team that's winless like this, even as bad as they are, can they get themselves amped up just one time? And you always hope that you're not the team that, falls out. So I'm going to say, obviously, Seahawks still win. I don't believe in Josh Rosen. But that leads me to my favorite prediction that we're going to go today.
You don't believe in him?
No, he sounds like a terrible individual. He sounds like someone that I would avoid at all costs if he were my neighbor or he worked in my office. He sounds like a total D-bag. So
Really?
That's why we have this prediction. The number of times that you're going to see his face on TV and want to punch his face, 3.5 over under.
I'm going to say under because I'm only going to want to punch him if he starts doing good and we start losing. So I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to say under.
I didn't know what he looked like, so I had to look up for this question. And he looks a little bit like Interesting.
He looks like what?
Like a little bit like Aaron Rodgers. Like he could be his cousin or something.
He looks
Not
like
like brother.
looks like a prep school kid to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he like this dude's like was such a frat boy, right?
Yeah.
This dude was like leading the hazing. I'm gonna go over, man, because if they're gonna show, God, look at that picture. Find the picture of him at the Cactus Bowl. He's kind of, oh my God.
He does kind of look like if Aaron Rodgers and Jay Cutler had a kid.
Right.
And maybe
Some
Peyton Manning
angles
was
he looks
hanging
more
around
like him.
too.
Smoking Josh Rosen.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like some pictures just look so douchebaggy.
Yeah.
Oh, Ross wants to hit him. Listen to
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Ross is a convert. He's ready to punch him out.
Well, I'd never thought about it. How come there's so many there's no way I'm not going to call Josh what's his name? Josh Rosen? There's no way I'm not going to call Josh Allen 5 times during the game.
Well over 3.5.
Why do all the quarterbacks have to have like generic names like that this year?
His punchability is well over 3.5. Over for me. All right.
Way over.
Earl Thomas turnovers. I put it really low because I'm gonna. Teams might stray away from him. So, Zeb, I have it at half turnover. Is he going to get a turnover in this game?
Yeah, you can't avoid Earl. He's everywhere. Over for sure.
You can't scheme away from the free safety, but I'm going to say under just because statistically it's going to have to start evening out. I mean,
I'm going to say under because I think they've been doing a really interesting thing with Bradley McDougald. Bradley McDougald, I don't think we can give enough credit. He's a great signing. He's playing amazing. He's playing the ball. He got that fumble. He's playing great in coverage. He's not the kind of player that we had in Cam, but he's half of the reason why I think Earl is playing so well. But what I've noticed is they've been letting McDougald stay as a high safety and then letting Earl play close to the line. So they're definitely doing some new stuff with Earl, which is something that I think is really unique.
They're doing that. They're also letting Ted T2 on, and he'll play the high safety as well. They play a lot of 3 safeties the last couple of games as well.
So I think that this is a game that maybe Earl doesn't get a turnover, but it's because they're going to use him in just these really, really creative ways, which is, again, I think Pete Carroll's like, look at you fools in the media and all you crazy fans worrying about it. Like, we got this covered.
Does he get his sack, though?
You know, he hasn't had a sack in his career. I'd like to see Earl get a sack.
I was going to say, does he finally get a sack this game, or does he get it this year, or is that going to be the tragedy of his career? He's never going to get one.
Maybe. We'll see.
I feel like he's going to get one this year because they're doing a lot more DB blitzes this year. So I feel like he's going to get one this year. He's been really close twice.
Yeah.
Really close.
All right. Zeb, over under rushing attempts, 24.5. We had like 36 in that game.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that trend to continue, so I'm going to say over.
Ross, what about you?
I would agree with Zeb. I don't think it'd be 36, but I don't think it'd be 30 all in one guy, but I think it'll be over 24 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of put 24.5 because that was kind of like the average across 3 games. I didn't think we'd really get to that 30 points. I wanted to kind of make it something across the past 3 games. I think if they're going to win, they need to rush it more than that. They need to run more than 25 times. That means they don't have to get 5 yards a carry, but getting 3 is really solid. It puts them in good position to try and convert third downs, which I think would really help them. But I'm hoping they have over 25 carries in that game. For Russell Wilson, over-under passing attempts, 20.5. Zeb.
Well, I'm sorry for dragging this out, but if you go back to 2012, when we walloped the Cardinals 58-0, Russell threw the ball 13 times in that game.
Ooh.
So, if we're going to have a world-class shellacking like I hope we do, maybe it's going to be a similar case. I'm going to say under.
It's good. Ross, what about you?
That would be awesome, but I don't think it will be under. It's not with you. I would. If Russell Wilson threw the ball like 10 times in a game and completed 6 and like for 2 touchdowns, that'd be awesome. But it'll have to be more.
So
They don't
Russell
protect him like that.
Russell threw 26 times in the game against Dallas. He only had 16 completions, but a lot of that was attributed to drop balls. He really should have had about 21 completions. He only had 16. I think for them to put up the 35 points that I'm predicting, I don't think they can get it all on the ground. So Russell Wilson's going to have to throw the ball a little bit. So he'll be around like the 26-28 range. And they got to run about the 30 to 34 range. And I think that's really where we're gonna hit that sweet spot.
No.
I agree with that.
And
I see Russell Wilson with 3 touchdowns, man.
I hope
Again.
so. I need him. I got him on so many of my fantasy teams.
You're all in.
I am all in on Russell Wilson this year, and I think
Brandon Marshall, 1.5 drops under or over.
Ooh.
He had 3 drops. He had 3 drops on some.
Brandon Marshall drops.
But he also had 3 catch.
I mean, he had that amazing catch and throw from Russell where I don't know how he made that catch, but I'm probably going to say over.
Video game.
Yeah, I mean, like, so that ball, he was going to the south end zone on the Seahawks sideline. I'm on the other side of the field. I saw that ball and I'm like, oh, that's going to get intercepted. And then all of a sudden, Brandon Marshall like signals first down. I'm like, what happened? Like, the D didn't turn his head because that ball literally came out of nowhere.
It wasn't very well even. It was just like on a flat trajectory straight into his hand.
Yeah.
It really looked like old school Madden, like 2005, 2006, before the animation got caught up. It's just like we're just gonna draw that straight across and it's in his hands. Okay.
I'm sorry, Brandon Marshall, but I would probably say over 1.5 drops.
Ow.
I think Doug's going to be back, and his chances maybe drop, and Russell will find someone else.
You think Doug's not back this week, is he?
He's
I
practicing.
don't think he is.
He's practicing.
I don't think he's gonna. Like group, like team drills.
Yeah.
Maybe
I mean, we got time. We got time, but
I don't know. I think his drops are going to be under 0.5, but like I think you said, it's probably just going to come from lack of opportunity.
for sure. Gentlemen, that's our show. Shout outs.
Shout out to Justice Kavanaugh.
All right.
What?
Good luck with all that.
Okay.
Ross, shout outs today.
I'm going to go with that as well. I mean, if dude is going to be confirmed and everything, I mean, I guess I want him to succeed, right? Like, overcome his limitations or whatever, and then be the best judge you can be. I'm also shouting out to Air Canada, good service again, and Uber Eats, because
They got Wi-Fi on Air Canada?
They do.
Nice.
Good stuff. Special shout out to Tony. Thank you very much for providing us with a great topic today. Shout out to both Zeb and Ross for joining us. Check us out at Seahawks Fan Table on Facebook. We're on Twitter at Seahawks Forum and Seahawks Podcast. Check our forum out at hawkcast.com. A lot of great content, a lot of ideas. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.